But on our second story of the day, on page 21, it reports that 1 in 3 teachers quit inside 5 years of qualifying. Now, Scottish teachers are already going out on strike. English teachers are currently balloting for a strike, and that's not people who teach English, it's people who are in England and teaching, are balloting for a strike. Now, the government is being urged to negotiate before the ballot closes on January the 13th, a mere 9 days away, but in typical fashion, the government seems to be taking the same line it has and everything else and refusing to talk to the unions, insisting all is well and that it is spending an extra £2 billion on schools this year, next year, and the year after. Now, we've seen that's not worked with any of the other industrial disputes they've got on their desks, Ben. Is it going to work with schools where people do actually do maths?
Probably not, no. Like I said, the ballot for industrial action closes in a week Friday, and I'd expect that the unions will back industrial action, and in a few weeks or months we'll be facing strikes from teachers. Some of the stats in this piece about the number of newly qualified teachers who leave the profession within 5 years, they're really startling, actually. I just want to pull some of them out. 116,532 new teachers have begun the career in the last 5 years, but of that 116,500, only 90,000 are still in the classroom. So that's 26,443 who qualified in the last 5 years, went into teaching and then left. So they're not enjoying the experience, quite clearly, and I can imagine that. I wouldn't want to be a teacher, but lots of people do. It's one of those the worthiest professions that people can go into, but clearly some people are going into it and hating it and leaving quite quickly. Now, part of the reason for that might be the pay. Certainly when the rubber hits the road and they realise what they're getting paid and what they're having to deal with in classrooms and how their hands are tied on certain issues, then, they're obviously realising it's not for them. And, of course, a lot of these people who've gone through teacher training, of course, there's a big investment in them. So it's not great all round.
No, exactly. It's not something people go into lightly. Usually it's not something people just go on a whim and they go, I didn't like it, I'm going to something else. So you've got to go through a fair bit of effort. You've got to have degree qualifications and so on and so forth. You've got to invest some money and some time in it. And it says in the piece here that 1 in 8 quit in the first year. 1 in 4 quit within 3 years. And 1 in 2 are planning to go in the next 5. So that's half of all teachers going, stuff this. I'm out. I'm going to go and have a massive career in investment banking instead, which Rishi would presumably support. So there has to be a way of getting some more teachers in schools. There has to be a way of keeping those teachers happier when they're there, and perhaps not teaching in buildings like the one at my daughter's school, which has a hole so big that you can put your fist through to the outside, which is not very good and doesn't involve, how many schools are like that? How many schools have got leaking or collapsing roofs? There was a piece in Private Eye this week, Ben, about public buildings that were built between 1950 and 1980. They used a particular kind of concrete roof support, which was popular at the time. So it's in hospitals, it's in public buildings, it's in schools, it's in libraries, and it's crud and it's all rotting. And so ceilings and roofs are collapsing all over the country because they use this stuff. And that requires a massive nationwide building program to fix.
Sounds cheap.
Sounds cheap. Sounds easy, doesn't it? But it also requires someone to actually grasp it and see that there's a problem and that it's not just an NHS problem or an education problem. It's nationwide. It's the entire public sector. Needs a new roof, literally. Put a new roof on everything and fix half these problems. Anyway, we'll have to see how any of that works out, won't we? But January the 13th, the closure of that ballot, and then no doubt perhaps some more strike action if they can get over the required level. What is the level they're supposed to get for strikes, Ben?
It's 40% of a 50% turnout.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that. I haven't got the figures on top of my head.
They've got to hit a certain mandate, haven't they, before they're allowed to do it. And then we're going to have teachers, posties, physiotherapists, nurses, who else isn't on strike? Who knows? Whereas a journalist did strike, of course, and got their pay rise, so not in a position to complain. So keep asking us your questions and comments. We'll do our best to answer them for you. Anne-Marie says, education needs to be put back into the hands of the experts, the teachers. That's what they've claimed to do for years, Anne-Marie, with grant-maintained schools and then whatever they're called now, academy, and goodness knows what else. And it actually means that teachers are doing more of the bureaucracy, as far as I can tell. So they're not really doing so much teaching as they were. We'll have to find out how it all pans out in the next couple of weeks as 2023 turns into, well, just a continuation of 2022, really.